Hello, are you here to debate?
Hi. Yeah, I am. Uh,
All right. What's your
name's
name, age, and
James.
pronoun?
25. He works this one.
Okay, you're a little quiet, so if you
Okay,
could just speak up a little bit.
is it more? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, it's just you're talking a little quietly, but it's fine. We can hear you. What topic do you
All right.
disagree with on the board?
So I guess you could throw this one in kind of like the free one, but in one of your, I guess, discussions or conversations, you alluded to the idea that like people of color, like I think Black people was a kind of like more likely to, I guess, be in positions of poverty, something along those lines, not verbatim. And I feel as though that's something that um, I'd consider questionable, I guess, these days. Just
That
kind of based
that black
on,
people are more likely to be in poverty situations?
yeah, something like that.
Okay, what are you
Is
basing
that is
what are you
that a
basing
stance
your
that you hold?
just
I
one
don't want to,
yes,
throw in
disproportionately black people are more likely to be under the poverty line. Yeah.
okay. I mean, I feel as though that's, I guess, in in in, in and kind of like what's out there. I think that's less so along color of skin lines and more so along national origin lines. Is when I say that because there are largely successful African migrant populations in the United States, as well as if I have to go beyond, I guess, black people, then you'll find that there are also a large number of very successful Indian Americans in the United States, and the common denominator among those two populations is probably education. I will admit, though, there is a filter to the two populations where you have people, coming over, and that alone kind of means that you have people with a certain mindset or a certain financial ability to move from wherever it is they were, to come into this country. But then there are also
So just
populations
so
where
just
they,
really quickly, this is just kind of a nonsense point. When we look at the population, the distribution of poverty by population, black people make up 20.6% of impoverished people. White people only make up 9.5%. The only rate that surpasses black people are American Indian, and typically, indigenous people will face higher rates of poverty just because of historic genocides that happened to them. When we look at the black population, when we look at the schooling system too. Why are black people's typically going to schools that have worse outcomes? It's because they were historically shoved into poor intercity neighborhoods by policies created by white people. And then they typically are in places where their property value is down, so they don't pay as much in property tax. And therefore, the schools are not funded because schools are primarily funded through property tax. It kind of just all ties back into like the reason black people are more likely to be impoverished is like systemic racism, not because they make bad choices, quote unquote.
so I feel as though recent developments kind of like counter argues that because if you break down the black population, if you kind of micro segment that into what I would consider native born black Americans to say Nigerian Americans, Ghanaian Americans, people who are black but then are, pretty much first or second generation African origin, you'll find that their numbers are way closer to the white population on
I
let's say like
wonder. I wonder
average household
why.
income.
I wonder why somebody who's here, who's been here, whose family was historically brought in through slavery, or through segregation, through racial covenants, through redlining, why they might have a tougher time than somebody who comes over here willingly. I wonder if there might be like
Yeah,
some reason behind that. I wonder if it might still
I'm
be,
not arguing against that reality.
white
My
supremacy.
argument is against the whole like lumping together that black, which to me kind of means that even if someone's black, but then their origins are kind of like say like wealthy, whatever. It kind of throws them in that same population, and
Except
I
when we
feel
lump
that
when
way
we're
because
not hold on, we're not lumping. Wait, I gotta stop you there because we're not lumping people together. We're just looking at the averages when we look at these groups. We need to look at the averages. It doesn't help us not to look at the average. So the average black
averages
American,
don't
yes, averages tell the story, homie.
averages are skewed heavily by outliers. And so when you're looking at
No,
things like these, you tend to want to be looking at medians, and you may want to segment it further And I say that because there are things that there are programs in play that are there to benefit, like black people. But then you have people who are black, but may not exactly fall in that historical, context of
Yeah,
like their
wait, but
families were
you're the one who wants
um,
to use the outliers. You want to use the outliers. You want to use the
not
people who fall.
outliers.
Yes, you do. You want to use the people who work on the extreme opposite end of the spectrum to show that black people aren't historically oppressed or aren't facing these disproportionate outcomes, but
That
they
is
are.
not my argument. I'm
Many
not
data
saying that black
sets
people are
do
not
eliminate
historically oppressed.
outliers. Like,
Can I just,
depending on the study, you might eliminate outliers depending on the parameters.
I would also say, based on the caller's own definition, um, Jovan gave you the number. I think, what was it, 20, what is it, 20%, 22%? Is
Black
that
people
correct?
make up 20% of all
20%.
people in poverty in the U.S.
Okay. So the question to you, caller, is if they make up 20%, what is their actual population percentage in the country?
Nothing. What's the percent of black people in the country? I'd like to know.
13. So they're exceeding their percentage of population by 7%
Okay.
in poverty. So that means that the outliers are not positively impacting the totals. They're further evidence that what Jovan's saying is accurate, that it is so disproportionately harming one demographic to an extent that they are exceeding their population size in poverty by 7%.
To me, I think it's. I guess what I'm arguing against is the jump into conclusion with some of these, like the way some of these terms are thrown out there, and the way it affects the people who truly need what I'd call access to um, uh, programs like affirmative action and things that actually need to lift people out of their positions. Because once you say, oh, it's like, black people this, black people that, to me, it means that the people who are truly the deprived black population now then have to compete with people who are black but do not have that background, like that history of oppression and whatnot. That the the segment that actually needs, and you tend to see this because like in Ivy League schools like Harvard, MIT, you have large populations of Nigerian Americans, I guess you want to call if they have American citizenship, or people like of the African.
It kind of just feels
Sorry,
like you're
guys.
saying we need to. It really feels like you're just saying we need to separate the good blacks from the bad blacks.
Uh, so now you're putting words in my mouth again. I'm not saying
No, I
separate
said
the
it
good blacks from the
seems
bad
like
blacks.
I said
What
it
I'm
seems
saying is,
like this is what you're saying. I didn't say that is what you're saying. I'm saying it seems like that is what you're saying.
what I'm saying is, we need a way to kind of truly identify people who have needs, and the term black alone to me doesn't cut it. I'm of African descent. I am in that section of the population that feels as though that even though I immigrated into this country, I immigrated into this country with privilege, and it's a privilege and mindset. It's a privilege and exposure, and I've always felt some type of way whenever I've been in situations where it's like, put your name down. This makes you eligible, and it's like I don't need these things, right? There are people who were born here who were not so fortunate to have access to some of the things that I had access to, regardless of where I came from. I may have come from a third world country, but I think that alone doesn't determine someone's odds. Um, and so the overarching theme of my, um, I guess, my conversation or debate here is that America could benefit from further breaking down the population, especially the black population, just to ensure that the ones that truly, truly, truly need to be lifted out are not having to then compete with others coming from elsewhere who have
I
that
have a real
information.
simple solution to this. I have a real simple solution. How about we
That
fix the system for all black people and not just some black people? How about when we say that there's issues that black people face, those issues still affect black people who are well to do, right? Serena Williams is one of the most wealthy black women on the planet. She still gets racially profiled, right? She
I
still
mean,
had issues. She still had issues at a hospital dealing with like how the black women are historically ignored when it comes to medical services. why do we need to separate, like, right? Like, if we're saying, hey, we want to fix these outcomes for black people, it should be fixed for all black people, not just some black people.
I mean,
Also,
I
are
feel
you
like to
black?
your point about,
Can I just
okay.
ask, are you black?
Yeah, I am. Like I said,
Okay.
I'm Black African. I immigrated to this country. Um, to your point about like Black women and healthcare, like access and whatnot, you can further drill on down into just women in general. So yeah, there's a lot of fixing needed. And if you have to kind of like break it down and down, I mean, to me, like even to bring in Serena Williams, I feel like sure, yeah, she might encounter certain issues, but those are probably limitations in science because she can definitely throw money at things if she needs to. But again, um, it just raises the need to kind of like further break it down to see, okay, where do we have historical disparities, and then let's kind of address it. But when you kind of start going like overarching, you kind of start raising another populations of elitists within the population you're trying to help in the first place. And to me, it's no surprise that, you know, people like Indian Americans, Nigerian Americans, Ghanaian Americans are becoming more successful than, so to say, native uh, Black American people, and that's just because they have a certain mindset and they know how to go for the things of, you know, like things like affirmative action and to kind of play the system, you know, play the game and come out, you know, even better on top. And the reality is, their successes are not going to always stay in the United States because people have affinities to where they were born and where they came from. And I know this because I see this. It's where I'm from. You know, they send money back home. They start things back home, what they would call home, regardless of whether or not they hold an American passport. So to me, it's important that things are even better segmented. That way, that the proceeds of programs that are meant to lift people out of, you know, situations like that that our Black American brothers are facing and sisters, uh, they can better take advantage of that. But yeah.
Yeah, I would just say all of that is like fundamentally untrue, right? Again, this idea that we need to focus our efforts on just some portions of a population when all portions of a populations will still face these effects, right? Like, for instance, redlining policies still exist. Those are going to affect not just Black Americans, but Black Africans as well, right? I don't really care if they're sending money home. I don't give a shit about any of that. I care about fixing the issue for every Black person in America, not just for some of them.
Like what's an example of like and I'm not putting down the things that exist because regardless of how long I've been here, I still feel like I'm an outsider, and I feel like there are things that I cannot even speak to. Where it's like, oh yeah, Black people do this, Black people. I'm like, yeah, I'm Black, but I can't speak to some of these things because that is not my story and that is not my reality, right? I know I'm in a
That's
position
why
of
that's why
privilege just
you
by being a
don't
Black
have to
person.
speak for them. That's why we use these things called statistical averages. Because you not experiencing them does not mean that another black African immigrant doesn't. It just means you don't experience them.
I should know as someone who majored in statistics that averages do not represent the population. Um, so, I mean, I guess we'll
Averages
we'll
don't
agree to
represent the
disagree
population is the
on
craziest thing I've heard all day.
just the what thing you've heard all day.
It's the craziest thing I've heard all day.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, maybe my my tertiary education failed me, but yeah, that's kind of, you know, where I stand for a lot of things, but um, I just feel as though the programs that the government puts in place can break themselves down to go more than just color of skin, because it's, you know, it's not all there is to it.
Okay.
All right, appreciate your time. Take care.